send out the replay, as well as any resources that we mention or share. I have access to after the meeting. You'll get that in a recap email. So welcome, everybody. This is September's version of Supporting Productivity, a systems implementation mastermind. I'm Jessica Pulick. I wear many hats, but the hat that kind of get all of this kicked off and started is I am the Director of Ops for Tulio Pena and the Pena team out of Colorado Springs. Been with them. This is currently my 4th year of helping run that MRAA team out of Colorado, and that's where all the systems were born. I inherited a 3-agent team with no transaction coordinator. All the agents before me had been transaction coordinators, and how many of you, nod your head if you're an agent, you try to be transaction coordinator, and that's just not gonna work. So that was the first system I did. That's where we started. Everything else has been built since then. Today we are going to focus, I kind of got it on there, and I'll make myself big here in a minute if I can figure out how to change the view. But my background here is lead gen systems. So I want to talk lead gen tracking, and I want to talk very basic entries into follow-up. How do you follow up with the people you've just had conversations with? And how do you know who you should be having conversations with? So kind of broke it down a little bit, and we will go from there. This is collaborative. I will sit here and let it be silence. I am a high D. I am a direct personality. I will make you participate in some form or some fashion. So first and foremost, a system is anything that's repeatable. So writing it down, how you do it, how you build it, what the next steps are, you have to start somewhere. And for every system we've built, there's always kind of some pre-system questions. So my first couple of pre-system questions are, hold on, I have a second screen. I'm popping up my cheat notes so that I know that's not, of course, running tech. Running tech is always fun. My notes aren't where they're supposed to be. So, come on, open back up. This goes up here. I have 2 screens. I think the route to productivity is more than one computer screen. So I'm pulling up my notes here. So pre-system, knowing what your lead gen sources are. How are you going to classify what you track? How are you going to segment your follow-up? How are you going to get intentional about your lead generation if you don't know your sources? So just jotting down kind of, are you referral based? Are you internet leads? Are you door knocking? Are you farming a community? Where are they coming from? Because your audience will always define how you interact with them and how you set the system up. So just kind of a list of where your leads come from, because it's going to impact how you build your system and how you fill in your personal pieces of the overall system concept. And then how are you prioritizing or time blocking? We can build you a system all day long, but if your schedule doesn't allow the system to be used, to be consistent with the system, if it's not on your calendar to do, how effective is it really to have a system? If it's not time blocked on your calendar, if you're not making time for that option, the system is really not going to live up to its fullest potential. And then the last kind of pre-system, just as a reflection gut check, is your standards. If you're trying to improve your lead generation and you want to get into tracking, what is the measurable metric? What's the win you're going to celebrate? Are you going for 5 calls that day? Are you going for 10 calls and 5 messages? Kind of what is the standard you want to hit so that you build in that consistency to hit that standard? Having those 3 pieces help make, when it comes time to make decisions on what the system looks like for you and putting it into implementation, helps define what each of the piece looks like in your system. So with that being said, who actually tracks what they do lead generation wise in any form or any fashion, consistent or not? Who has actually tracked this week their lead generation? I see Greg's hand, I see Michelle's hand, Jennifer in the chat. So who struggles with tracking your systems or tracking your lead gen? So Okay, I'm gonna have a couple of you come off of mute. You can raise your hand or we can talk, but if you struggle to track your lead gen, what is the hurdle? Is it a mental block? Is it a, I don't know where to start, it's overwhelming? Is it a, I haven't found a tracker that works for me? If you want to raise your hands, we'll kind of walk through that. This is the interactive mastermind part. Why are we designing a system? Why do you need the help? What do we need to analyze? I'll let you go first, Kelly.
So mine, I don't really, and this is going to sound awful, I really don't make systematic phone calls. I really do events, and I contact people around events, either by phone, by text, by email, by Facebook, by Instagram. And I don't really know how to track that, but I don't pick up the phone and call 5 to 20 people a day.
So when you are calling for your events, how do you know that you called them on Monday so you don't call them on Thursday? Or how do you know that you called them on Monday and you need to call them on Thursday?
I don't.
So and that's where the questions are. And the only reason, so guys, I'm gonna tell you right now, I ask convicting questions, I ask challenging questions. The only reason I can do that and the only reason I feel comfortable doing that is because I've been here for 4 years. I've been asked challenging questions. We regularly have a business coach. I've regularly been in a lot of community spaces, and just my day-to-day with Tulio, he's a high I, I'm a high D. And so I'm like, why are we doing that? And he goes, why are we not doing this? And so I've been challenged. So I'm going to challenge you guys as well. Linda, where is your hurdle in tracking?
My hurdle, I would say schedule, but it's also consistency. So I'm lead genning, and I can be structured, but then things pop up and then it gets over here. What I really would like to do where I'm at in my business is have a strategy, meaning I want to do, my DTD2s, and then I want to do some for sale by owners and some expired, like have a plan on when I'm doing what. And that way it would be more trackable. But, as it is, it's like, I mainly do DTD2s, and all that add-in stuff that I want to get to is a little harder. And if I just have the systems, I feel like it can be done.
Okay. So it sounds like you're actually making the calls. Do you note anywhere? Do you write them down? Do you log them in your CRM? Do you ever make a list of what it is you've done that week to know how much you're actually doing?
So yes and no. So yeah, I use the DTD2s. Everybody's tagged in command. So that's been a given through Pivot. That's been my thing. Now with this 76 hard, I'm actually tracking it on paper. But it's on paper, I want to, I need to get it into command so that it reports, and that'd be the next step. I'm still like running with my hair on fire from 76 hard. I'm writing out my script as you're talking, so it's a lot. But yeah, the tracking, and I want to know, where the lead came from. I want to do all that stuff that command offers, is my goal.
Okay. So let me pose a question to the mastermind as a whole. If somebody walked up to you and said, how many people did you talk to this week about real estate? Do you know that number? Could you tell them how many people you've talked to this week? No, I'm seeing a lot of shaking heads. So then I'm going to convict
what I do, Jessica, is
Yeah,
I categorize them A, B, C, right? A is 30 days or less to close. Then I got the 60 to 90, and then the maybe a year or two from now. So my focus has always been on the A, right? I know I shouldn't, but I give them the most amount of attention because they want my help right now. So what I do is I use Follow Up Boss and got the tags and all that stuff there, but I'm old school. I will give you, if I talk to you, you get a whole page on my notebook. I put your name there, I put a date, and I write notes about whatever happened with us. Now, if I get an appointment with you, I also, again, I got just a regular page. I'll draw, I told this to James, I make 12 circles, and by the end of the week, I need 12 people inside those circles. And that's how I feel like I follow up, because I feel like when it's inside the follow-up boss or whatever CRM I'm using or command, it gets lost and I can't find it and I forget about these people, even though it might have a drip or whatever. But this book is here and I'm writing notes and I'm following up on those notes and I'm taking care of these people. And as soon as we are under contract or whatever, I put a big line through it. I'm like, there we go, done. You know, and so I think that's working a lot for me, because I used to be an ISA for top producing teams and I did all the fancy stuff that they ask you to do, but it goes back now to just this is how I track.
So who heard when Michelle was talking that, one, she knows who she's talking to, two, she writes it down so she can keep track of who she's talking to. And then she has a standard. She's got to fill her 12 circles before her week's been complete. Those are all the pre-system stuff I'm talking about. So, a couple of hands popped up. Denise, you had your hand up. Did you have anything else you wanted to add?
Well, I was just going to say, in terms of what I do, I have probably about 4 different ways of tracking, but none of them are consistent. And some of them overlap, some of them are written. If I'm making calls, I have a Google number. And so I can't go straight from my Google number into command. It takes a little bit to, even if I'm recording a message in there. If I do it in paper, then I wind up with tracking sheets that I've got to turn around and then put into command. And I have spreadsheets, but the spreadsheets don't prompt me. I have to remember, what to do with those as well. So, and those are only phone calls. If, I don't really track if I don't send very many text messages, but that's a little bit harder to track, because I'll send a text real quick, and if I don't review in my phone, then that gets missed. So there's a lot of different things, but they're just not cohesive and they're not consistent.
Okay. But you've started trying to tackle something. You just haven't found something that makes you happy to get from point A to point B without being clunky. How many of you call with your CRM open? Got a hand with Greg, got a hand with Denise. And so calling with your CRM open might reduce some of that, having to put it here and then copy it here. But on the other side of that coin, it's, if you don't have the system set up or you don't understand the ins and out of your CRM, it also probably isn't like, I know there's reports. I know CRM or command especially gives us a whole bunch of information, but being able to use those numbers to your advantage gets a little lost in the murky waters. And so you've got to, there is no perfect silver bullet. You've got to figure out kind of what works on what matches. I'm going to screen share real quick. So I always apply to, when we're talking about a concept, here's the very basic entry option. Like if you don't even know where to start or haven't started, you can start here. And then if you're doing something, but you need some kind of improvement, then there's a mid-range option. If you guys do this, but you're here for how can I make my system more efficient or more improvement, then there's going to be a higher level option. So I'm starting at the very basic, and I do a lot of R&D. I do a lot of rip off and duplicate, a lot of our referral partners. So what I'm about to share is actually from our amazing referral partner, Matt Cannon out in El Paso. He has what he calls a hot lead sheet. Does anybody think this looks like Michelle's 12 circles? It's literally just I talked to this person, this is what I talked to them about. If nothing else, knowing who you talk to and who needs a follow-up and being able to schedule when that next follow-up call is, if that's a task in your CRM, or if that's a sticky note stuck to your computer screen, or if that's a calendar event, that's just a basic base level place to start. Who you talk to that day, what they needed help with, and when you're going to talk to them the next time. So that's kind of the basic entry level. And this will be in the resources I share when I share the replay. But yeah, he is a hot lead sheet. That's just one of the systems that Matt has, but it's a place to start. So if you don't track, what would it take for you to start tracking? Like, just start writing down what it is you do. Nobody has any ahas about getting into implementation? You're like, no, I don't want to write it down. I don't like pen and paper. I don't own a printer. I get that a lot. I'm a millennial. My printer is my favorite thing in the entire world. It's my most prized inanimate object. But I run into a lot of people who don't even own printers. So what do you got, Joanne?
So I do try to lead gen with my command open, but I use the command app a lot. So if I talk to somebody, I'll open the command app and just talk to text what the conversation was. And or if I texted or we had a two-way, I'll just copy and paste the text. I think what's lacking there is what's the follow-up. It's like, this is what I did, but I don't, I think I'm lacking what else needs to be done.
So, there's multiple ways to tackle the follow-up. The first thing that comes to mind is if you are utilizing your CRM, if you are utilizing command, you have it open, you're doing the copy and paste, you're putting in the notes, you're on that contact card, and you need to set a follow-up because you've just had the conversation, you know when you need to call them back, you know what you need to call them back about or email them about. Create yourself a task. It's trying to remember my dashboard. It should be on the right-hand side, but create a task within that contact card. You can, what the task is it a call? Is it an email? Is it an actual like to-do item that you need to do? It's like, hey, I need to make a report and send it out, or I need to do a CMA. And then you get to set the time. You get to set the day, the time of day, and all of that follow-up. You get to set the priority of the follow-up. If you're on a team, you can delegate it to one of the other linked team members within command if it's something they need to do instead of you. So it's all in building your repetitive motions and the workflow, call them workflows of I've done this, now I need to do this, and okay, now I can go on to the next call. So that was the basic entry, just writing it down, keeping track of people you've had conversations with. All of this will build, if you're in the pivot shift community and you've heard James talking about conversion ratios and knowing your numbers, these are all pieces that build that final number. The very basic sheet of writing down who you've had a conversation with is one part of that information. It doesn't really have any witness on your conversion ratio if you don't know how many calls it took to get those conversations. But knowing who you're conversing with is more profitable lead gen. You now know who is motivated, who is ready and willing, who wants to talk to you about real estate. But if you're looking to plus that up, then you may need to change what your tracker looks like. And I'm gonna screen share. This is kind of the medium piece, the medium tier. I'm gonna call out Greg out in Houston. I stole this out of the pivot files. It's Greg's tracker, but I think Greg R&D'd it from one of our other pivots as well. But I like his because it's not just the call. It's his whole morning tracker. It's what he's doing that day. How many dials, how many conversations, how many appointments, his gratitude, his to-do lists, when he's scheduled meetings. So if you need kind of a one-stop sheet on that, that's an option too. It's all in how do you, it's like a planner. I'm totally old school. You can do this digitally as well, but just your whole day in one shot. So you've got, like I said, gratitude at the top. Did he go to script practice? Which lead gen session is it? How many hours did he lead gen? Dials, contacts, all that other stuff.
So the contacts will be the people he actually spoke with, right?
Yes, I believe contacts is conversations in that sense. Correct, Greg?
Even
Yeah,
if they hang up on you.
Yeah, so it depends on the lead source. If I've got multiple things going on, pardon me. So if it's like expireds or FSBOs or some element of cold calling, I mean, even if they hang up on me and they say, wrong number or whatever, I'm very thorough. So if they say like, I'm sorry, there's a wrong number, I don't know that address. So I'm like, well, great. Since I have you on the phone, is there anything real estate related that I can help and serve you with? So I'll still count that as a contact. If it's my database and that's a different kind of contact than like a hang up or wrong number, but I'm still counting those as part of my contacts. I think the main thing is that whatever you're doing you need to have a standard for it, and then just be consistent with how you're tracking that. So like if you don't call those contacts, I think that's fine if you need a more in-depth conversation, but it's whatever you're going to gain insights from tracking that data over time on what's relevant to you and how you're doing business. So I guess.
No, you're good, Greg. Do you want to add something?
Yeah, I'll add one thing. So my coach has really impressed on me the importance of tracking time, and how just gaining an awareness of how much time it takes to gain a certain number of contacts. And looking at some of my data for this quarter, it's given me a lot of perspective. I either need to get more efficient in the number of contacts that I'm making per hour, or I've got to spend a lot more time on task to get to where I want to get as far as like appointments and everything else goes. So that's been really insightful just from tracking.
So conversion ratios at the heart are a percentage. And so if something increases, something else decreases. If something decreases, something else increases. And it, like, if you increase the number of calls, you increase your ability to connect with people, well, then your conversion ratio should theoretically go up. It should take less people to get to a transaction because you're having more conversations. And so it's all about, it's a seesaw. And then your conversion ratio is the pivot around which the seesaw goes up and down. So that's kind of the mid-range. It's a little bit more elusive. Did you notice that he's tracking conversations in which he's putting his notes in whatever tracker he's tracking that more than one? Hopefully it's his CRM. Hopefully it's command, but he's also tracking how many numbers he's dialed, how many reach outs he got, because the conversion ratio is basically you called this many people, you've had conversations with this many people, and then the funnel keeps narrowing down. You made appointments with this many people, you got agencies with this many people, you got under contract with this many people, and then you got all the way across the finish line and closed. So the funnel narrows every single time, and if you aren't tracking each step, then your conversion ratio is not as, what is the word I'm looking for? Completely blanked on the word. Beneficial is all that's coming to mind, but like that's how you build your conversion ratio, is knowing what your numbers are at each one of those gates. So then for those of you who routinely track, who have a tracking system, who just kind of want to see if there's a way to track differently, a way to take one little piece and improve the system that you've got, I'm going to share the Opinion Teams tracker. This is it's a spreadsheet because it's me and everything I do is a spreadsheet. But I'm also a little biased in it because it's color coded. It has drop downs and it has formulas, so it counts itself up. But our tracker is where it's coming from, who it is, what attempt it is, because we have shown through our data that it takes almost 8 to 12 tries to actually get some of our leads to answer the phone. And so if we're only on call 6, we shouldn't be giving up. We should be giving up or taking them off of our database or making adjustments to our follow-up plan on call 10, call 12, call 15. And then our columns. It was taken from Paul Curry's tracker. And so it's like, did you have a conversation? Did you not have a conversation? Did you schedule a meeting? Did you attend a meeting? Did you send out an agency agreement? Tulio very much has our team practice asking for business on almost every single phone call. If that client's not ready for business, you want inside their phone with all of their 2,000 closest friends and family and see if anybody there has business. So we have a column for, did you ask for business? Did you add them to the CRM? And then what's the note? And what we have found is using this in a digital format, the note can be copied and pasted into command. And so they can do all of their lead gen in this tracker. They can do all hardcore, hit your dials, hit your calls, write it all down. And then rather than stopping between each call to do the administrative tasks, they roll up in the last 20 minutes of their lead gen power hour and copy and paste and update all of our database based on their tracker notes. And this is for the entire week. You'll see that our standard for each agent is somewhere between 150 and 175 dials. And so if they haven't gotten to the bottom of the spreadsheet, it's impetus and visual reminder that they need to be making more dials. And the other thing I absolutely love, I love Excel. Like Excel and I are best friends. we have these columns. So all of this counts out of that. This is what all of our team is required to provide in our stand-ups on our Thursday meetings. Everybody has to say their lead gen out loud. That's the accountability piece. And these don't turn green until you've hit the standard. So if they're red, the lead gen hasn't hit the standard. If they're yellow, you've made progress, but you haven't hit the standard. They literally don't turn green until they hit the standard they're required to hit every week. And so if you want to go big or go home, there's that option too. So my goal is not to overwhelm you. My goal is to show you concepts or to drive home which pieces you need to identify for yourself. And then how do we make that repetitive? How do we lock that in and figure out how it's going to work for you, how you're going to put it in place, what it means when you utilize it. And like, I mean, how many of you understand that why writing down how many people you talk to is important? Okay. How many of you know how to get your conversion ratio? Okay. How many know how to explain that to somebody else? So I geek out on the math, but I feel like sometimes the math gets lost. And if it's not your wheelhouse, if it's not your personality, it's like, okay, where are we at in the process? We all understand it's important, but like, can we explain it to somebody so that it becomes, we can internalize why it's important to ourselves? What do you got, Greg? You're still muted.
I had a question. Was that 175 per day for every member of the team?
No, this is weekly. So they're supposed to be hitting 150 per week. So it's 30 per day. And that's each team member. Yes.
And that's contacts or attempts?
Dials, attempts.
Gotcha.
So, but where it gets slightly, that's per person. So it's an attempt. So we're reaching out to this contact. Our team was in our early days originally built on internet leads. We have a website that feeds us those. So we are basically now 30% internet leads and 70% referrals. But that's a dial, that's a person. However, our team has an understanding that if they call that person and they don't answer, then we either need to be sending an email, a text message, or a video drop. They could be sending all 4. That's not 4 dials. That's not 4 attempts. That's 4 methods for 1 dial for no conversation. So our lead gen is on steroids because that's how you find the clients. So does anybody have?
Can you hear me okay? That's LaShonda. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, what you got, LaShonda?
What were those 4 drops? You said that you guys do a video and what else?
So for most of our lead gen reach out with our prospective clients, it's a phone call is required. If you don't get them on the phone call, then they are required to follow up with at least 1, but it's an email, a text message, or a video text. Like we call them video drops, but you record a video message and you text it to them. So, but then at the same point in time, we'll have lead gen. Thursdays are the days that we do our D2 for our past clients. We have client events. Every single one of our client events has 25 to 30 touches in the 6 weeks prior to the event. It's required. That's why we're doing the lead gens, why we're doing the event, plus 5 follow-ups after the event. So if you're not talking to your client 30 times around each event, which we do 5 a year, then it all comes back to the tracker. It's on the tracker, what you've done. It's on it. We're always trying to build in the ability to make a phone call and have something to say and have some value to provide. Does anybody have any questions on systems around tracking? How to build a system, how to identify something like, I want to pivot to follow-up because it goes in conjunction with how our trackers get utilized and get input, but I want to make sure I'm not leaving anybody in the dark on tracking systems.
I have a question. Do you have any, I had to step off, so I might have missed it, but any like door knocking? Do you guys door knock and track that? Is there a different sheet?
So all of our lead gen is tracked on one sheet. We have the ability to drop down what it was that was done when it's out there. We don't door knock as a principal lead gen pillar. We door knock in conjunction with our open houses. But when they door knock, they that one they don't get to count every door they knocked on. They notate how many doors they knocked on, but when it goes on the tracker, those are actual conversations they had with people who answered the doors. So, what do you have, Kelly?
You mean,
You
Oh,
go over
yeah.
how to track the conversion rate? I know you were starting on that, but
Yeah, okay. You were underwater for a little bit, so all I heard was conversion rate, but I didn't hear the question about conversion rate. So you want to reiterate for me?
on how to track the conversion rate.
So conversion rate is a very broad term. There's literally a conversion rate for each step in the process. And so there's a conversion ratio for how many dials, how many phone calls you've made to how well you convert to have conversations. That's a conversion ratio. So the number of people who answered the phone versus the number of people you called. But then the next thing is like, okay, we have all these people that we called this week. How many meetings did I set? And it's a conversion ratio from phone conversations you had to meetings you set. There's a conversion ratio for meetings you set to, well, now they're under agency with me, or I put them, they became a lead, I put them in my CRM. There's a conversion ratio and it steps down. Each time you hit a gate, a stop in the path, there's a conversion ratio. The one that impacts that James has been talking about, that's talked about in the MRAA model, the one that impacts your goal setting and how your business model is structured is how many, you can do it either way, how many dials or how many conversations. We find conversations is a lot more pertinent in our business model. How many conversations do you need to get a closed transaction? And so that conversion ratio, James keeps talking about 1 in 100. That's a 1% conversion ratio. 100 conversations to one closed transaction is a 1% conversion ratio. Our team ranges between 0.5%, which is 200 people to a contract, to 3.5%, which is basically like 1 in every 60, I think. Anybody want to guess who has the 1 in 60 ratio?
Oh,
Anybody's ever listened to Tulio talk, you know that's Tulio on the team. But knowing that helps set, if you know you want to earn this, you know it takes this many transactions at the price point and the compensation, then it's going to take this many phone calls, and then that's how it breaks down, and that's how you set your standard for each week. And if you're not hitting that and your conversion ratio goes down, then your standard, how many you call your week, has to go up. If your conversion ratio goes up, then theoretically you don't have to call as many, or you're going to get ahead and have more transactions. So, Greg, before I come to you, Ellen, you raised your physical hand. Are you still in here, and did you still have a question? Oh, nope, she's back in the waiting room. Okay, well, I'm gonna back. So what do you got, Greg? And then I'll go back to Ellen.
Yeah, so I would just say, I'm not sure who said about door knocking. I do track that when I am doing door knocking, but I also just look at all my sources. I'm looking at my standard that I need to hit is total number of contacts or conversations I'm having per week, because that's going to lead to appointments, and appointments are what lead to business. So if I'm looking at, I play pickleball, and so if I have a conversation with someone on the court and it's about a two-way conversation about real estate, I'll actually count that in my like dial tracker or whatever. I'll count that as a dial and I'll count that as a contact. Now, that's just for me. It's
You can
100%.
just give it to them because they can't.
So I would do that similarly with door knocking. If I knock 50 doors and I talk to 10 people, I would count that as like 50 attempts and 10 contacts. Whether that's right, wrong, or indifferent, I'm open to feedback from those with a little more experience. But that's what I just want to know, kind of, if I'm having a face-to-face with someone, I've got 100% conversion on that attempt and conversation, right? So that's why I count it as both. Anyway.
So, and there's nothing wrong or right in that method, Greg, as long as you're consistent across all avenues. We don't door knock frequently, and then it kind of skews off our numbers when they're like, oh, well, we door knocked 200 houses and we left 180 flyers on a door handle. And I'm like, okay, well, you just tanked your conversion ratio, which isn't going to be an accurate reflection because we don't do it so frequently and it's not a core pillar. And so it's like, I'd rather know about the conversations you did have, because then that has a much smaller impact in this way on that conversion ratio. So again, it's knowing the deep dive on your data, knowing what the data is telling you and how to apply it to your business. You're back in, Ellen. I know you waved your hand earlier. Did you have a question about tracking?
I did. I reached out to you and you sent me your tracker. Thank you very much for that. And did quite often use
some of the people on our team just I felt like I needed to bring them along a little bit more slowly. So I created something similar to what Greg did to start. It's a little different because I created not his, but his looked great. Being said, I heard you mention that you have a stand-up for people to report their numbers. This is brand new because we just introduced it 2 weeks ago. But I only had one person this week indicate that they had followed the tracker. So my question is more, I guess, on the operation side of it. What is your enforcement of utilizing that in your reporting? You mentioned like Thursday stand up.
So, yeah, no, that's very easy to explain. So, for those of you that don't know, we have, at this moment, we have 7 agents on our team. We've yo-yoed over the last couple of years, but at the moment we have 7 agents. We have 3 support staff. All of our support staff does not live in Colorado Springs. We are all remote. I do this entire job of managing all of the things from 900 miles away. And so communication is huge. Communication is key. They have to use the tracker. If they don't use the tracker, they don't get any referred leads or paid leads the following week. That's the immediate consequence. You have to use the tracker. Our whole team metric, all of their commission splits, the way their membership is structured, all the things so we have a very robust membership agreement. The standards are in the membership agreement. You have to do this, and then we have a consequence list that goes with that if you don't do this. And a lot of it includes performance improvement plans and counseling and things like that. But that's understood when you join our team. We're very, hello, my ID direct, put it in writing. You signed it and put it in writing. And then that way, when it has to be addressed and it has to be updated, Julio doesn't get all up in, well, is everybody happy? Well, no, we all knew the rules. We're all adults. We're all, contracted employees, which is why it's not employees. We're contractors. Good Lord, that's the word I'm looking for. We're contractors, which is why it's a membership agreement. But we have a Tuesday meeting every week that is all of our transactions. If we end up, our transaction load is light, we talk about what's most immediate in the pipeline. So we're always keeping business foremost. Thursday is lead gen stand up. Every single agent has to report on their lead gen the week before, and they can't phone it in because their trackers live on our drive, and I have access to them in real time every single day. And I can tell whether or not they're filling them out. And I can tell whether or not their numbers match their tracker or don't match their tracker. And it's that accountability piece. We've had to bring in that accountability piece because nobody wants to stand up and say, I only did 1/3 of what I was supposed to. But they also can't then say, I don't have any business. Well, the numbers don't lie. And so that accountability piece comes in. And then the rest of that meeting is what's the next event? What's the next lead gen we're doing? Where are we at on tasks? How can we help up and support and plus? And so it's not an option. If you're on our team, you have to use the tracker. That's made noticed up front. They were doing something similar and I inherited it, but then it became a much more robust, and they have input on it. If there's something on it they don't like about it, or it's too difficult to use, or if there's a roadblock to their ability to use it, they can talk to us about it. We talk about it on the meeting. They can call me one-on-one. We make it try to make it as user-friendly as possible. You agents, I don't know how you do it. Like, I work my 40 hours a week and I turn my phone off. I was like, I don't want to be 24/7 for anybody, but there's where to find the balance. I don't want to make it so overwhelming and burdensome for you that you don't do it, or it takes forever to do it, or you can't do your 20%. But at the same point in time, if you don't do something like tracking or lead gen consistently, there is no business and you're not making any money. So it's finding the balance between the two pieces. But yes, there are consequences, and generally it impacts their access to leads or their access to all the client events are paid for by us, all of the follow-up, all of the mail outs. The team covers the expenses for a lot of the things their clients get. And so if they're not willing to play ball, we will pull funding or availability for that. It was the only hitting in the pocketbook was the only thing that worked for our team dynamic. You'll have to figure out what works for your team dynamic.
Okay, thank you so much.
So, no, Kelly, their numbers don't go up on Wednesday. They are actually pretty good. They've been doing it for 3 years, that they fill it out every single day. We also have a power hour. So if anybody's ever heard Tulio talk, he owns his morning. He is time blocked by the minute from basically 5 o'clock in the morning until 1 o'clock in the afternoon. It's on his schedule. Like I don't like to tout the fact that I probably know when that man brushes his teeth every morning, but I do because he is so regimented in his morning and in his schedule. And so Monday, Wednesday, Fridays, at 8:20 Mountain Time, their time. We're doing script and role play. On Tuesdays and Thursdays at 8:20, we are doing our team meetings. That rolls right into our 3-hour power hour. We have a Zoom accountability group that does our lead gen. All our agents are required to be on that power hour. If they are not going to be on that power hour, they have to tell me. It has to be on their calendar where they are. And there are very few exceptions to policy about why we're doing something in lead gen that is not actually lead gen. And so most of the time they get a good portion of their tracker filled out and done because they are structured and committed to that power hour in that lead gen time period. So, yeah, he's still in production. So he does do all of that. He still goes on appointments. He still goes on inspections. We're trying to get him out of production so he can teach more, but he loves it. So yes, I fight with him all the time about him and his production. So I'm going to pivot a little bit because we're down to about 18 minutes to follow up. This is a live thing. There's stuff I want to tackle, but if we're answering questions and we're providing value for you guys, I'll stay in a certain topic. But I liked where James went this week with the 8x8. You got to start somewhere. And the more contacts, the more reach outs, the more follow up, generally the better. And so huge proponent. We don't call it an 8x8, but we have plans. Ours is all run on smart plans, which tell the agents what they're supposed to be doing and when they're supposed to be doing it. And then IASA, our cyberbacker, manages all of our database input. And so when they put them in command, in the notes, they basically tell us that this is a hot lead perspective that they're going now. This is somebody that's 6 to 8 months out, or hey, I've scheduled a meeting on this, and they tell us kind of where they're at. And then operations maintains, I call them our purple tags. So anybody who saw my tag drop in Pivot, we are a highly leveraged tag database, and they're all color coded. Purple tags trigger smart plans, trigger follow-up, trigger workflows, keep the database moving on a systematic, this is who should be talking to who, when. The agents are not allowed to touch the purple tags. They don't do anything with the purple tags because then, I know I saw in the chat earlier, when you schedule tasks to command, who has felt overwhelmed? Who has felt your to-do list get this long and you're like, I don't know what to do now? Yeah. And that's what we were finding is they were, they're like, oh, and they were using the purple tags to trigger all of the stuff. And then all of a sudden I'm like, oh, wait, no, they don't need to be on all of these things and all of this stuff. So we control the purple tags. We put them on the follow-up, but we have taken the very basic 8x8 system and we've segmented it by audience. And so that's where we're at now, having done this for 18 months. But I want to rewind a little bit back to a very basic. When you're doing your lead gen, when you're making your calls, when you have a follow-up, how many of you basically schedule a single follow-up task based on the conversation that you had so everybody gets something different? Who doesn't have a standard when it comes to follow-up? Okay. Who wants to have a plan so that there's a standard to follow up? Okay. The easy entry to that is essentially an 8x8. For those of you who may not be familiar with the KW terminology, that's 8 contacts, 8 connections, 8 attempts to do something with somebody for conversation in 8 weeks. That's just the fancy name they gave it. And I think actually Family Reunion this year, they completely changed it. I think it's a 10x10. It moved. It did something weird. Essentially, you need to start with how many attempts in what time period? What do you want to shoot for? What do you want to consistently put everybody on? Is it, okay, there's going to be kind of 5 follow-ups in the next 30 days. Is it going to be 8 in 8 weeks? Is it going to be 12 touches in the next quarter? Kind of determine what you want to set that standard at. because I find it a lot easier to set the standard and build out the system and put it into place. And then, okay, this is too much, and trim it down, or, oh, I can have time to do more and plus it up. Versus, I want to do all of these things. And then you're like, I don't even have the game plan. I don't even have the roadmap, and I've gotten lost. So first and foremost, figure out kind of what the timing, how many follow-ups you want, and what you want the timing to be. And literally, this, you're going to write it down at the top. It's like, I want to stick by the 8x8 because that's what's stuck in my head. It's like, I want 8 touches in 8 weeks. So then you're going to decide, is that once a week, or is that a different thing? I mean, once a week is easy. And you're going to literally write out, like, who here has written or edited a smart plan? So it says like day 1, and then there's a delay, and then it says day 4. You're literally writing out a smart plan on paper. You don't technically have to use a smart plan, but you're literally writing out a smart plan on paper. And so you're like, okay, touch number 1 or conversation number 1, it's going to be on day number 1 or week number 1. And then make a decision. This is where it's going to come into, how do you personally lead gen? It's like, is it going to be a phone call? Is it going to be an email? Is it going to be a text message? Are you going to send them some kind of, video, or send them some kind of report? Or are you going to send them a newsletter? And write that down. I just want the method. I just want you to write the method. Is it going to be a call? Is it going to be a text? Is it going to be a video? Is it going to be a postcard? Is it going to be a pop by? What is it you want to connect with them on? And then go to the touch number 2. It's happening week number 2, day number 27, whatever is in there. What kind of method do you want? Build that out, and then go back and make sure you have at least 4 methods in that touches. Unless, of course, it's 6 touches or less, but 4 different methods. That way you're hitting them up. Or if you know that you're going to do a phone call and a text message and a voicemail or whatever, write those down. But you want varying methods, because we all know that, a one-trick pony never ever gets us to the end of the race. And then you want to go back and, okay, what's the piece of value I can add in a phone call? And the very basics is you want to be very broad, be very vague. So a phone call is like, can I talk about this? Is it a market phone call? Is it a care call? Is it a check-in? Is it a thank you for the conversation you had the week before? But if you make it vague until you start utilizing the system, and then you can pivot it either seasonally, or you can pivot it by audience. So if this is an 8x8 that's going to follow a client event, the first of touch might look different. But if this is the one you're going to just start using with everybody, it needs to be a little bit more vague and approachable, so that you're not personalizing for every single person. Does that point make sense? Okay, we're nodding heads. So, and this is where it gets in, is the follow-up plan doesn't gel unless you're doing follow-up you want to do. That's why you guys have to design your own plan. You have to know how you want to talk to, what you want to say. And then it's like, okay, are you the person who sends out all the events, all the fun things to do that weekend? Are you the person who is, everything has to do about dogs? Are you the person who wants to have a phone conversation more than you want to have anything else? Are you cool into video? Do you absolutely hate video and you never ever want to do it? That's a get out of your comfort zone question for another day. But you build the follow-up plan around how you like to connect with your community, because then you're that much more likely to actually do it. And your follow-up plan concept should be standard. Everybody can do the same kind of concept. And then your first one out of the gate, if you don't automatically do this, your first one out of the gate should be able to be used for 75% or more of your database. And then as you get comfortable with it, and as it becomes consistent, you'll start seeing where you personalize it, or you'll start seeing where you're like, okay, these came from this source. This is my sphere. They get something different than the people I met at a networking event. Or like even agents will get something different than prospective clients. Or, hey, I had a home buyer seminar, or I had this, or follow-up plan. You can modify your 8x8 if you do like a vendor event, and you've got your table and your giveaways, or if you're doing a bold, or if you're doing, it can all be tailored, but you have to start somewhere. And so you'll see how your personality and the way you do your business comes out in that when you start developing your plan. but I don't want you guys to get overwhelmed or lost or stuck in the details. I want you to get into action. So I'm just trying to give you the bullet point steps to, this is how it works. For those of you who may already be doing this, the pro tip that I have, so back to our database and our purple tags the operation runs, we have 15 workflows that people get put on based on where they came from and what they need. And it's as simple as, hey, this is a prospective client that's going to buy in the next 90 days. And so their conversations are ramped up. So it'll be a call about every 72 hours. But the minute they schedule an appointment, that's a different plan. And then the appointment has its own plan. And if they're under agency, it has their own plan. If they're more of a long range, then it's kind of the same call, alternate newsletters and stuff like that, but it's spread out. And our purple tags control all of that. It's all handled by Smart Plan. So our Smart Plan does all of the 8x8 mixing for us. It will set a task for the agent to make a phone call at a certain point in time, and it will tell them what the phone call is supposed to be about. But then we'll also set a task for, hey, we have 6 client events a year, so we have regularity. It's always client event season. And so we won't say what event it is, but it will say, hey, we have an event coming up. Why don't you invite them to the event? And it will also automatically send emails. We send mid-month emails with certain topics. It will send emails on behalf of the agent. And so there are ways to build systems in to help automate your 8x8, but you have to know what your 8x8 is. Any questions? So I know it's a lot. I find the best for evaluating and then repeatability and scalability is finding somebody to be accountable with. Finding an accountability partner that even if they just say in chickens like, hey, how's that going? I haven't even started yet. I'm like, well, what's the first step? But finding an accountability partner, and then it's a system, it's repeated. If you don't write down at least some basic checklist steps or some basic, I'm going to do this, or this is going to be something I do every Monday, or this is something I want to do every single day. If you don't set a time boundness to it, or you don't write down the workflow and the step order, you can't repeat it. Every time you go to do it, if you're trying to do it from memory, you're going to do a little bit different every single time. And if you can't repeat it the same way and be consistent in the repetition, you don't build the muscle memory. How many of you would like to wake up and just know that this is what you're going to do and not have to think about the steps? Yeah. How many would you like to be able to teach what you do to somebody else so they can do it and you don't have to do it at all? Yeah. So that teaching component, and this is very convicting for me. This has been my life the last 6 months. We hired Anna, our team admin, and I've had to, it goes hand in hand with delegation. You can't teach what you can't define. And if you don't do it consistently and it's not written down somewhere, then you're trying to teach somebody a process out of your head. Who's ever tried to teach somebody a process out of their head on the fly? That's not fun, is it? No. This is why we practice our scripts. This is why we practice our buyer processes. This is why we create the systems. So write the system down somewhere. And the bonus point to that is if something happens to you and it still needs to happen, if it's written down, somebody else can at least read what's supposed to be going on and check and see what's supposed to be going on. Heaven forbid anybody get hit by a bus tomorrow. How's the world going to happen without you in it? So we got about 5 minutes left in the time frame. I'm going to open it up. Does anybody have an aha? Does anybody have a hurdle? Does anybody want to add anything to the conversation? It's kind of going to be a free-for-all discussion for the last 5 minutes. No, nobody. What do you got, Blanca?
Believe me, just listening at you and all the things that I should have been doing already is overwhelming. And when sometimes when you have ADHD, it's like, okay, she's telling me and I'm to do this and create this and that. And damn, it's overwhelming. And so even that I'm listening at you, knowing when to start, is like, I have so many different notebooks And every paper, sometimes I'm in the phone and somebody calls and I don't have my note, then I get a little piece of paper, and then I write there and I say, what? And not enough information for me to know what the hell I wrote here and what am I supposed to do with this? So I have so many notebooks and notepads everywhere that is becoming overwhelming. And so even I have this. So it's difficult, and I'm trying to see
Wonka,
where do I
breathe.
start.
Breathe. What I would start with first and foremost is, how would you personally describe your ability to hold a boundary?
Very good. I mean, I can,
Okay.
yeah.
So then make a commitment to yourself. The very last thing you do every single day, give yourself 15 to 20 minutes to gather all your papers up, figure out all what it is you need. You don't have to do all the work on them, but put them all in one spot. And then kind of look through and say, okay, and pick three things, your top 3 priorities. What is the 3 things that were the most important that happened today? And what do I need to put at the top of my list for the 3 things I have to do first thing tomorrow morning when I move into work mode? And just start that focus there. And we've had to implement this with some of our team members who are ADHD. Yeah, they're squirrel all over the place. I always remember, can we go back to focus? Like, what are we supposed to be doing? Pick one thing, pick 2 things, and just do that. But I think that at the end of the day, that transition piece where you kind of bring yourself back together, you focus yourself in, you gather all your things in one spot, you close out the day, you make the line in the sand, and then you transition to family time, you transition to personal time, and you close it all down. And then you know what you're starting on the next morning. See if that helps. Try that for the next month. But yeah, for tracking, literally just start writing it down the same way somewhere, and then figuring out how you need to get that into your command. But just write it somewhere. That it could be in an email. You could literally have an open email draft all day and email it to yourself at the end of the day, if that's what it takes to make sure that you've got it in your pocket. And then start with your 8x8. You're already doing some kind of follow-up. All y'all have business. It comes from some kind of follow-up. It's just not consistent.
Yeah.
Or if it is consistent, you're like, hey, how can I do this? Well, I'm not having to do all of it. So just pick one thing, pick one piece to tackle in the follow-up of like, okay, well, maybe it's every person I talk to in Legion that I've written down on my tracker, I need to call them in the next 10 days. What does that look like? What day am I calling them on? And make notes of what day you're going to call them on. That's the beginnings of a follow-up system. Does that help?
Yes. Sometimes, but it's difficult sometimes, Jessica, when you're a solo agent, to try to really respect your time. Because, I mean, not to say, but it's easier when you have somebody that is helping you. Yesterday, I was just walking and I say to the my team leader, I say, my God, there's not enough hours, and now I have to go and show houses, and now I have to go and do a listing. So it's difficult being able to juggle, and because of course especially in this market, you need to go out there and meet your clients and see the listings and all that. So that breaks whatever system you have in the morning, and that's my problem, because I juggle with everything that we have to do. So I cannot be consistent because every day brings a different challenges. And that's what I don't know how to implement. That's my problem.
And I can commiserate with that. Sometimes there are not enough hours in a day. There is overwhelm. You're wearing a lot of hats. And so being introspective of what do you want? Are you still happy with what you're doing? And is this achieving what you want? Or are you doing too many things? Can you pare any of that down? And then is it time to look into some kind of leverage? Not all leverage costs money, but is it time to look into somebody to take something off your plate for you so that you have that extra time in your day? So, and it might just be a list of, did you do this, and this today? Okay, you had a good day. And then you start over and just the next day. So.
Thank you, Jessica.
You're welcome. You know I love you, Blanca. It's just
I know. And I love, like I'm saying, I love the meetings in the morning. And even I talked to James, I think that you saw my post, that the best sometimes is the ones that are not being recorded. It's
Yeah.
the most important information that is actually being thrown there, but that's the one that he doesn't record. And
No, you
I
gotta
want
save
to
some
be
of that special
successful.
sauce behind the good stuff. You gotta get up and get that early morning soundbite.
Yes.
So, Jeannie, did you have a question? I saw you trying to wave me down. Nope, no question. If you're talking to me, you're on mute. Okay, I don't have anything else. You guys, like I said, I appreciate you being here. The October is already on the books for October 24th. So I will be sending out you guys so I leave for Mexico next Wednesday morning. It is a business retreat, but I'm literally sitting on the beach trying to plan what's going to happen next year in this job and some other income avenues that I am looking forward to and kind of branching out in. With that being said, I'm not taking my laptop. It's completely unplugged. And so you guys will still be getting emails from me though, because guess what? I got a system. And so a lot of stuff's going to be pre-scheduled. A lot of stuff's going out, but everybody that was on today will be getting a follow-up email. It'll have the replay. It'll have the resources. It'll have a way to get a hold of me if you want to chat further. And it will also, because you attended this month, you guys get early access. You get 4-day early access to October's registration before it goes live to everybody else. So, and then I always record the chat. I look through the chat. If I didn't address your question or if there's pieces in there, I'll make sure that that gets addressed either directly to you or in that email. But all that is going out. I appreciate you all so much. You guys make me rethink some of the things that we do and how we can be better. So I appreciate everybody being here. Our Florida people, our hurricane people, stay safe, and I'll see you guys on the pivot side. I'll see you guys in Word Wizards, and you know where to find me. Most readily, I'm on Facebook. So bye guys.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jessica.